everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Wisconsin Weather Experts. It is Monday, February 3rd. Had to double check that
new
date.
Month.
A new month, exactly. Meteorologist Stephanie Barrichello, joined by meteorologist Lisa Michaels. Yesterday was Groundhog Day.
I know. Could you believe it? It's that time of the year where I think we can take the blame that people give us and put it on the groundhog for a change, right?
And aren't all those animals who celebrate so lucky to not be on social media?
I know, right? But they are, it's a tradition. We go back to when the German settlers came here from Pennsylvania, and they would actually use hedgehogs, but we obviously don't use hedgehogs here. We use groundhogs mostly.
Right, exactly. And here's some video footage from yesterday out in Punxsutawney. That's Punxsutawney Phil that you can see right there. Now, he did not see his shadow, so he is predicting 6 more weeks of winter. But, technically, Lisa, Phil is not very accurate.
No.
His accuracy rate, I believe, is between 15 and 20%. New York's groundhog, Chuck, has like an 80% accuracy rate.
I wonder what it is. Do you think it's just the New York air? I mean, there's got to be something in the water, right?
Who knows? But he predicted spring, early spring. So we're going to go with that. But we do things a little differently here in Milwaukee.
Yes. And in Milwaukee this year, we did dwarf goats. Kind of an unusual tradition, right? They're really fun. They did not see their shadow, so they are predicting an early spring as well, getting along with Chuck there on the East Coast. We usually, again, use a groundhog, dating back to 2019, but Gordy the groundhog unfortunately passed away in 2023. So last year, they did the penguins waddling out before jumping in the pool for their prediction. This year, they did the goats, and the Milwaukee Zoo is actually looking for a replacement for Gordy. But in the meantime, it's still fun to see how good are these other animals at predicting if we're going to have an early spring or more winter.
It's all about the tradition, and it did look like a party where Phil was yesterday. So I do understand the tradition and all the fun that goes along with it. But there you go. We'll see what Wisconsin holds. If only we could ask Lake Michigan, because, that's really the determining factor when it comes to our shift in weather. But speaking about the weather, let's take a look across the country and talk more about what we have going on here. The big weather story across the U.S., including in Wisconsin, we kind of have an unsettled pattern up towards the north, but then warmer than average and potentially even record-breaking temperatures in the southern half of the U.S. But here's our setup here. We have a couple of different storm systems across the U.S. We have one that's kind of passing through our area right now across Wisconsin. Northern and central Wisconsin saw accumulating snowfall yesterday morning as well as this morning. I know I've been looking at some of the cameras between Green Bay and parts of Door County, and it's definitely more snowy than what southern portions of the state saw in the Milwaukee area. It was all rain and drizzle and fog, and that is actually ongoing at the moment. Now, off towards the west, more notably though, something called an atmospheric river that basically just means system after system after system impacting the same area. So there's actually a stationary front across northern California, and that's actually keeping mixed precipitation as well as rain in that area through the middle of the week. We've seen with the system closer to Wisconsin, the advisories dropping off or expiring now that the snow is beginning to taper off. Still some winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories off towards the west, though, because of a few of those different storm systems. And then just honing in a little bit more on some of the rain. Now, this is more so for northern portions of California. Remember, the wildfires were in southern California, but the good news is that at least in this area, they also still need the rain, and even some of the snow at the higher elevations, that's still going to trickle down and help things out a little bit. But take a look at some of the rainfall that they could see through the middle of the week. Higher terrain areas, 6 to 8 inches. North Bay, 3 to 6. The Bay Area, about 2 to 4. And then the Central Coast, about 1 to 2. So basically, any rain is good for any part of the state of California because it has been a very dry winter and dry last couple of months in those areas. So you can still see that precipitation as well as along the Pacific Northwest too. Here's that system that Wisconsin just saw. You'll notice most of that snow is pretty much tapered off, crossing now into Michigan State as well as up towards New England states. And it's really the same thing. Notice the northern part of the system is snow. The southern part of the system is rain. That's exactly what we saw across the state state of Wisconsin, with southern parts of the state seeing the rain and northern parts seeing the snow. Now let's focus in on temperatures. Forecast highs across the country. Some of these 80s that you see down towards the south, we could actually see record-breaking temperatures today, high temperatures that is, in places like Oklahoma and Texas and even eastern New Mexico. So really watching the southern plains when it comes to record heat today. Sounds funny talking about record heat towards the south, flooding rain in California, and then snow up towards the north, but that is our weather, right? Up towards the north, though, you'll notice actually going to cool things down for the upper and central plains here for the next couple of days. We don't have, like we've seen in the past couple of days, those 40s, those 50s back in the forecast. All that warmth is staying now in the southern half of the country. In fact, even as we look ahead to the next couple of weeks, a good chunk of the upper and central plains, especially, you get towards the Dakotas, Minnesota, Nebraska, looking very likely that below average temperatures will stick around through potentially the middle of February. So not only looking at kind of a more active forecast in the coming weeks, but also a cooler forecast in the coming weeks. That's your look weather-wise across the country. Now, something really cool that happened over the weekend south in southern Wisconsin, I should say, the Lake Geneva area, was Winterfest. And Lisa, you actually were out there and got to see some of this stuff firsthand.
Yeah, I did. And it was really cool stuff because you were the one who brought up the idea that Winterfest was this weekend. I just happened to be in the area with some family and got to see the beginning process of this. It's something that I really think everyone should have the opportunity to see at some point. Again, those sculptures were made. I was going to dig into a little bit of the photos that I took as well because it was a beautiful opportunity to get out there. Really, this was the 30th annual Winterfest that Lake Geneva had. It's a snow sculpting event that they had back since the mid-1990s. There's 15 teams, and award-winning teams, I should mention, from across the country that participated in this. What the big trouble was we had warm temperatures. And Steph, you mentioned you saw some photos as well. They put either some sort of awning over these massive snow blocks they bring in or some sort of reflective covering to really insulate the snow so it doesn't melt. I got to go around and see some of the sculptures being made. This was actually one of our local teams from Wisconsin. Josh, Bob, and Mike were part of the team, and Josh is actually the one on the left who was sculpting this.
Okay.
I'm going to put this in perspective. He's 6'7".
Wow.
And take a look how tall that still extends above his head. So it was a massive amount of snow. I mean, again, these big blocks that they bring in for all these teams, and then they created this beautiful piece on the right-hand side when they finished it. And believe it or not, yes, the locals, Wisconsin, took first place.
That's amazing.
They got a trophy. The nice thing, though, is these teams do not take home any kind of money. They get a trophy. They got to win first place, but really are there for the enjoyment of doing it themselves, the creativity, and allowing people to see their beautiful artwork. Now, another something that was cool is a lot of these teams are men. This was the only female team that they had. They were from Minnesota. This was Heather, Juliana, and Maggie, and it was great. They had to alter their piece a little bit just because of the warming temperatures. So some of their, thinner portions of it they had to knock down, which is fine, but still, I couldn't even make that with a snowman.
Oh my
snowman looks not as perfection.
What kind of tools did they use?
So that's a great question. It's all artificial snow, so not real snow, but a lot of it almost seemed something as a rake that you could use that would just be able to scrape off pieces of it. It wasn't anything intricate like you would see little knives or anything. It wasn't any of that. It was more bigger tools that they could scrape some of that snow off of. But it was a spectacular event, something that they've had for quite some time. And again, a lot of this is man-made snow. You talked about the lack of snow we've had, and we have a 16.8-inch deficit here locally. So I wish we could have seen some snow. We have a lot of that snow actually was melting. So I was really worried about the completion of these structures as if they were actually going to stand. How long are they going to last, especially with the deficit we have here. But, man-made snow, I think maybe a little easier to carve than ice per se. Still, something I don't know know if you and I would do as well as them, but it was cool to see and have locals win.
And they started, I think they got their blocks maybe last Wednesday, and then were supposed to start carving, and the weather really did not cooperate. In this video, as you can see, we had sunshine, we had that record high temperature, I believe, was it last Thursday maybe? Yeah. That was 56 degrees in Milwaukee, meaning Lake Geneva was probably so much warmer. Yeah. And then even over the weekend, Lake Geneva had more rain than some of that snow. Yeah. And the snow that they did see was that really heavy, compacted snow.
They did. And I don't know if we could take it back to my graphics for a minute to show you something else. Because we've had a lack of snow, you can see the melting on the left, but someone made a sand igloo on the beach because we just don't have enough snow to make an actual igloo or real snowman. So there's still ways to get out there and have fun and enjoy.
I love it. Well, that's a really cool event. We're already going to look forward to next year's event as well. And kudos to the Wisconsin team taking first place.
For us.
I know there was another Wisconsin team that took the favorite, the viewer's choice, or one of those categories. So super exciting stuff there.
But they had teams from Florida too.
Alaska.
Can you believe it? Yeah. I want to know, where do some of these warmer teams go to make these snow sculptures?
Where do they practice? Yeah.
I don't know.
We have lots of questions. Okay. Well, we have plenty more to talk about here, but we are going to take a quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back, everybody, to Wisconsin Weather Experts. We were just talking at the beginning of the show all about Groundhog Day. It was yesterday, and as we look in previous years, in the past, in the Milwaukee area and parts of Wisconsin, Groundhog Day may also spark another memory for a lot of people, and that's a while ago, back in 2011, a huge blizzard that we, dubbed the Groundhog Day blizzard. Meteorologist Tom Walks has a recap of that just incredible storm.
So many years ago now, but we still talk about this. The Groundhog Day blizzard of 2011 in southeastern Wisconsin. Boy, we got hit hard with a whole lot of snow all across the area. Look at all of that snow from back on Groundhog Day in 2011. Yeah, there was a lot of shoveling and snow blowing going on. Take a look at how much snow fell just from February 1st to February 2nd of 2011. 20 to 24 inches of snow in parts of southeastern Milwaukee County, eastern Racine, and eastern Kenosha counties. Milwaukee had 15 to 20 inches of snow out of this system, lesser amounts farther to the northwest. But let's dive into this system because it was really a fascinating storm. Take a look at this. These were the weather warnings that were in effect that day, and you can see the blizzard warnings, and this really gives you an idea, by the way, of the storm track as well. So blizzard warnings from Oklahoma all the way to Detroit, Michigan, winter storm warnings from New Mexico all the way up to Maine. I mean, this system was huge, and again, it came out of the southwest. So take a look at this. Fascinating radar image here, and this is from the National Weather Service. This was on the night of February the 1st. So now, just to kind of give you an idea, this was a Tuesday, February 1st, Wednesday, February 2nd, 2011. So this hit during the week. And you can see here the heavy snow band. So this is what we call a system snow band. The area of low pressure was down to the south in parts of Indiana, and that put southeastern Wisconsin in the perfect corridor for a heavy band of snow, which is typically to the north and northwest of the surface area of low pressure. And that's what we had in this case. So again, this was that Tuesday night, and you can see that heavy snow band draped across the area. Now, also of interest is as the system was moving away, the northeasterly winds brought in lake moisture, what we call a fetch, or the winds coming in across the lake, picking up that lake moisture, caused lake effect snow after the system started moving away. So this is a radar image from February the 2nd, and look at this. You can see right over Milwaukee that lake effect snow here, and what this is not only showing, it's showing the snow, but it is also showing the wind direction here, and also showing some convergence of the winds. So those are the winds coming together, causing the air to rise and increasing the snow locally in this band as well. So a multi-phased blizzard here from when it came to not only the system snow, but also the lake effect snow out of this system. Now, this is a fascinating map. I'll break this one down for you. This is a surface map where you have warm fronts, cold fronts, areas of low pressure on here as well. So here you can see the area of low pressure in Indiana. Now, the white lines here are isobars, or lines of equal barometric pressure. The closer the lines are together, the windier it is. So not only did we have the heavy snow, we also had the strong winds flowing counterclockwise around the area of low pressure. So this storm came out of the southwest, came across Texas, and then came up through Oklahoma, Missouri, Illinois, and into Indiana. That put us in the perfect zone for the heavier snows and the strong winds. So that's why we had the blizzard conditions, because we had the wind in association with that heavy snow. Plus, you got all the moisture just coming right up from the Gulf. So it really was the perfect storm, so to speak, because it was, well, the only storm in the area. So we didn't have a southern storm to kind of cap the moisture down to the south or cut the moisture off down to the south. The moisture was able to make it all the way up here into the upper Midwest. So let's talk more specifically about this here. Over a 48-hour time frame from January 31st to February 2nd, 2011, Milwaukee saw 19.6 inches of snow. So just in that 48-hour time frame, along with 60-mile-per-hour winds reported in Milwaukee County. The heaviest fell Tuesday night. That was that system snow that we showed. And then Wednesday was the lake effect snow. So kind of a 1-2 punch. It was really a fascinating system in that regard. And again, that all goes back to the storm track, plus the fact that the lake was open from a moisture standpoint in order to bring that moisture in on February 2nd as well. And I should define what a blizzard is here. A blizzard is when you have snow with wind gusts of 35 miles per hour or greater and visibility of 1/4 of a mile or less for a total of 3 hours or more. So technically, that is the definition of a blizzard. And safe to say, we hit that definition on this day back in 2011.
Oh, my goodness. So many memories. We were both in Illinois at the time, and I want to go back and see how it impacted us down in Illinois, because probably a little differently. But as you could see from Tom's map, I mean, a good swath of the plains were under at least a blizzard warning.
Yeah, and we're talking about how we really haven't had big systems like that in, the past 5-10 years almost. It's almost unusual to see that kind of snow, because if you're out there now, well, you may see some remnants. A lot of it's just died or dead grass at this point. So we could see some snow, though, in the forecast, hopefully to bring us some activity. Hopefully not seeing 19 inches or more in a day, but definitely a big event back then, not only for snow lovers, but the groundhog as well.
Right, exactly. And I mean, if we had a system like that tomorrow, that would pretty much bring us right on track with where we should be for the season. Yeah. That's how far below we are when it comes to snowfall. But I believe, I know we had a couple of bigger snows back in 2018, back in 2019, not as big as that. And I know there was also a decent snow back in 2015 as well. But that's, I hate to say rare, but just not, it hasn't been the trend for us here as of late. So we'll see how things shape up in the months to come, of course. But at this point, nothing like that in our forecast. We are going to take a quick break here, but first, here's a live look outside.
A little foggy.
Little foggy. It's still there.
Well, welcome back to your Wisconsin weather expert. Stephanie Barkello and I are here talking about Groundhog Day. We've been breaking down the big Groundhog Day blizzard just before the break with Tom, and we've seen a little snow of ourselves, but that's been melting over the past couple of days, and some rain has really been moving in today. Now, that's going to have a bigger impact, right? When we're still in winter, we have had these fluctuations of warmer temps, cooler temps, And I think with the water that we're still having on some roads now, that's a bigger concern of what's to come tonight in terms of a freeze.
Right. We do have temperatures dropping tonight, especially in southern Wisconsin, but really statewide, into the single digits and even teens by tomorrow morning. So any of that liquid that we still have on the roadways right now could refreeze. Now, meteorologist Holly Baker has a good explanation as to why bridges and overpasses freeze first.
During winter, whenever a winter weather advisory is issued, have you ever wondered why they always emphasize that the bridges freeze first? Well, let's dig into a little bit of science here. Most of the roads all lose heat pretty quickly and evenly. However, some of the roads are actually connected to the ground. So if you have a regular road that's connected to the ground, that's going to give it more of a heating source, meaning it's going to insulate a little bit of that heat. But whenever we evaluate those bridges, the bridges have cold air at least above and below, so it doesn't really have a heating source, and that causes the bridges to at least lose their heat a little bit faster than those roads that are at least connected to a ground source. And that is why, in fact, the bridges will freeze first.
And really great information with that potential for refreezing tonight.
Yeah.
As you are traveling, know that if you are on a bridge or an overpass, it could absolutely be icy if it's not pre-treated.
Yeah, and a lot of the times what we're talking about too is this isn't snow where you're going to see it. That
right.
refreezing, it could just look like a wet surface and again turn into more of a black ice situation. So just take it slow if you're going to be heading out, especially during the morning hours and even later on when it's darker and those temps drop.
Right. Exactly. Great advice there. Now let's go back in history a little bit. Meteorologist Rob Haswell loves going day by day and looking at what has happened, especially if it is weather related. So here is today's interesting tidbit.
On this date, February 3rd, 1959, it is called the day the music died. Sadly, we lost the Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, and Ritchie Valens in a snowstorm and a plane crash. Now, this is the map, the weather map from that time. You see a big broad area of high pressure. You've got that system moving in from the north and west. The cold air that settled in caused the band on their tour, or not really a band, the three individual singers, but caused the three of them to say that I'm done with riding in the bus. We got to get out of this bus. And they took a plane, but they took a plane just as this storm was reaching its height. And so the Winter Dance Party, which, by the way, started in Milwaukee in 1959 in January, then, of course, left for places like Green Bay. They got off that bus because it broke down. The heater broke and got onto a plane. And unfortunately, of course, went down in that winter storm on this date, February 3rd in 1959, and went on to be called the day the music died. And, of course, the legendary song written about those tragic events.
Oh, so heartbreaking day in history, but it is always so, somewhat fascinating when weather really is the impact,
Right. And, whether you're traveling on the ground, in the air, by your feet, weather impacts us at all times. So, again, it's a good thing to just kind of keep your brain thinking of before you head out the door, what's the weather here locally, or if you're traveling somewhere, so you can try to find the best way to stay safe.
Exactly. Well, we talked about a lot today. I think the big story going forward, though, again, especially weather-wise, is the potential refreeze tonight, and then Wednesday, and we'll talk a lot more about this both on Fox 6 as well as on Fox Local. Wednesday could bring, a really true wintry mix of sleet, maybe some freezing rain, including some accumulation. So that's really on our radar at this point.
And unfortunately, with that kind of activity moving in, that's not something that can easily be removed. So we will be here, our entire team, keeping you safe and giving you the updates you'll need as we head into the upcoming days.
Exactly. And no headlines just yet from the National Weather Service, but my guess is that later this afternoon we'll start to see at least something being issued, maybe starting down south in Illinois, but eventually here in Wisconsin. So once again, weather-wise, that's a big factor for the next couple of days.
Yeah. We need some winter snow, though, and I know, Steph, you've been talking about we might have a chance also of some accumulating snow by this weekend, so we're also keeping an eye on that as we are still in drought conditions here across southern Wisconsin.
And I'm still thinking about those snow sculptures.
Beautiful.
I do wonder how much has melted even since Sunday, since yesterday.
Travel down there, see what's left over.
Yeah.
I want to know how long it's going to take to melt the whole thing, just, to a little pile.
Right, because you see those big piles in parking lots of everything that
and they last forever.
Exactly. It's almost a competition to see when it's actually going to melt, but
we're going to have to find out.
I love it. Well, thank you guys for another fun show today. Thanks for staying with us. Oh, and by the way, if you have a weather question, scan that QR code and we'll answer it in next episodes.